Good afternoon and welcome to Windsor Castle, Historic House and Park. I'm Tracey Neikirk, Curator here at the house as well as Wight County Museum. And we're going to talk for a few minutes about the house, and you get to see parts that most folks don't get to look at as they're wandering around the building. The house is in excellent condition, and we're very excited to show you some of the renovations that we've done. So the house here at Windsor Castle was built by the Arthur Smith family. There were 5 Arthur Smiths. The first Arthur Smith arrived here in Hampton in 1622. He was only about 15 years old, so it wasn't until 1637 when he received a patent for land here in Wight County of about 1,200 acres. Now, during this patent, he built a house. We don't know where the original house is. Is it working?
You're fine.
Oh, okay. Original house is, and the patent extended on for another 1,000 acres when he brought over 29, we're having a little technical difficulties. Okay, so we had, so back to Arthur Smith, number 1. He actually brought over 29 immigrants to Wight County and received another 1,000 acres. So when he passed away, he left over 2,000 acres to his son, and he, in his will, was said he was wanted to be buried next to his wife in the cemetery. So what we're going to do is wander around the house, talk a little bit about the Smith family and later families in the homestead. Arthur Smith II lived in this area as well, but it wasn't until Arthur Smith III in 1720 when the house was started to get under construction. So when we go down into the basement, we're going to get to see signs of construction, adding and changing a little bit of the home. So follow me on down to the basement. So welcome to the wonderful English basement that's in Windsor Castle. The original house that was started in 1720 by Arthur Smith III starts over here. You'll see a lovely lamp there on the other side. So the house was a 2-room house. It had a basement, 2 rooms, and a very peaked roof. It also had a foyer. You can kind of see a little bit over here, similar to houses like Bacon's Castle or the Matthew Jones house in Newport News. As the house had what they called a commodious attic in that, as well as an exit to that. So the Smith family resided here. They also had a farm that they grew typical crops of the period, tobacco being one. Interestingly enough, green peas being another, as well as pigs. Pigs are the perfect colonists. They arrived here with the early settlers, and Windsor Castle Farm continued to raise hogs, produced hams, pork, and bacon all the way up into the 20th century. Now, the Arthur Smith number 4, who the town of Smithfield is actually named for, expanded the house. And you can kind of see a little bit underneath these is you have a little area where a wall was here, and then there's another wall going to this direction. Arthur Smith actually expanded the basement just a bit, created a second set of rooms onto the house. So by the time of the American Revolution, the house had 4 rooms on the main floor and 4 rooms in the basement, but still nothing in the attics. Now, Arthur Smith IV owned all the land in the area. The Windsor Castle sits on the confluence of the Pagan Creek and Cypress Creek, and the town of Smithfield was created and named for him in 1752. He gave up some of his land to create the town, a wharf, as well as the courthouse. The British government, they needed to pay taxes and they needed to charge taxes, so a wharf was created here in Smithfield at that time. There were 72 lots in the town sold for different houses and businesses along the way, and it is named for him. Now, Arthur Smith number 4 actually married Elizabeth Bray Allen, who was residing at her husband's home at Bacon's Castle in Surrey, Virginia. He went to move to Surrey with his wife, and his nephew Thomas Smith took over the plantation here as well as the home. And we know a little bit about all of these gentlemen because of their tax records, as well as documents in the courthouse that we were lucky to save. A little bit about their habits of growing, the size of the house, and things in inventories. Thomas had an inventory done in the house when his uncle died, and he had a lot of queen cakes and mincemeat pie pans left behind. With that, he must have had a real sweet tooth. Now, as the house grew and changed, it had new owners. Arthur Smith, number 5, sold it to the Watson-Jordan family, and the Watson-Jordan family enlarged the house. One thing we did discover in the renovations here in the early 2000s is a little bit of graffiti done at the house. This is the door facing the river, always the front door of the house. Someone had actually scratched a picture of a couple dancing in that, right about waist height for a small child. Also, on the second floor of the house that was created by the Jordan family, you also see drawings of ships. There's a wonderful view there of the Pagan Creek, and large ships would come up to 10 feet of draft up the Pagan River and unload goods, not only tobacco, but corn, barrel staves. Even we found out dried apples was a big export here by the 1850s. So he drew the different ships that he saw. So we'll head on back upstairs, talk a little bit about the Jordan family and all of their children, and see some of the additions and changes he did to the home. So this room, set now as a sitting room, was one of the original rooms of the house that was built in 1720. Expanded again in 1740, and then when the Johnson family lived here in the 1830s, it was expanded again. The Watson family added the bigger windows that you see here. They also added the wide floorboards and a door that went between the two rooms. Some of this extra scrap molding that was colonial in style went off to the upstairs and to the basement, but archaeologists have found evidence of this renovation. There was a lot of window glass that was found in archaeological excavations done by Christopher Newport University, as well as other artifacts. So an example of these is a 18th century spoon that you see here. This has been printed in 3D in plastic, as well as some Majolica ware that was found outside. One other interesting piece that was found outside is a small stirrup. The Jordan family had reportedly 19 children, and we do know they added a wing onto the side of the home to accommodate all these children. And we do know that the Jordan family also probably had a small school in one of the basement rooms. So all these children had to accommodate the whole family. So the Jordan family also grew the same crops, pork being one of them. And outside in the main yard, you'll see the really large smokehouse. That smokehouse was to hold almost 200 plus hams. So exporting hams was a big thing, but the really interesting thing is that Windsor Castle had its own brand of sweet potatoes. You don't think about sweet potatoes, but they had a huge crop of sweet potatoes. So they were truck farming here at Windsor Castle. Vegetables was a big export for this particular manor house. So we're going to walk through where the dining area would be and ending up in the parlor and talking a little bit about the Jordan family, and then after that, the Johnson family. Enlarged the house. One of the original rooms had a doorway, and that went to the exterior extra room. But in the 1880s, they sold it to Jeremiah Johnson, and his two daughters came to live here at Windsor Castle. Now, one of the daughters Effie married a local gentleman named Charles Betts, and the story is that they had their wedding at 6 o'clock in the morning. And the reason for the early wedding was that they had to catch the 7 o'clock steamboat here in Smithfield so they could go on their honeymoon. So we're very, very close to downtown Smithfield, so weddings change times here and there. But this would have been a wonderful morning easterly room, a parlor for ladies to come sit and receive guests. Now, when they were doing the renovations in 2000s, they pulled off the mantle here and found all kinds of interesting things. The Johnson family had a number of children, lots of visitors, and one of the things we found was a calling card for Dr. Boykin. Well, Dr. Boykin would visit here. Turns out he married a local resident, a girl that was staying here. So we found his calling card. Another object that we found behind the thing is the button hook. So just kind of standard objects. And we found scissors. Now scissors, not only did we find these nice embroidery scissors, we found children's play scissors, we found regular scissors, all kinds of scissors where someone would set these things on the mantle and they fell right behind. So the Johnson family enjoyed their time here at the house. Charles Betts purchased it from his father-in-law, and the Betts family continued to come visit and use Windsor Castle as a summer home, and then Charles Betts Jr. retired here in the 1980s and early 90s. He renovated the house, made this into a bedroom, added bathrooms and better kitchen to it, and one of the tiles that came out of the bathrooms is kind of a retro colonial tile, so you'll recognize that from the early 80s kind of retro tile. So we like to say that this house is continuously being growing and changing with the different residents, from the Smith family to the Jordan family, the Johnson Bett family, all the way into now the town of Smithfield is using it as a venue, as a place for people to come and join and have entertainment. So the house is never quiet. So houses continue to grow and change. I encourage you to use our Facebook to ask any questions you may have about the house. This is kind of a quick tour. Please come back maybe in June when we start having regular interior and exterior tours of the house. So we hope you have a great day, and I hope you're staying inside as well.